Hey guys, this is Deeflash and we're back with another video. This week we're going to take a look at reverb and how we can place it on our tracks to give them some depth. So to start, we've got a 303 loop here. Pretty dry and has nothing to it. Just sounds like a plugin that's running. So what we can do is we can put reverb on it, and that can make it sound like it fits a little better in the mix, and also gives it some depth so that it sounds like you're recording it from a room rather than just from out of your computer. So the way that the reverb plugin works, or I'm sorry, the reverb effect works, is you've got a filter. Well, you have you have 5 sections. You have input processing, early reflections, global, diffusion network, and then your output section. In your input processing section, you have your filter, and then you have your pre-delay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on. And you can hear how the filter takes the incoming signal and filters it before it's processed by the reverb. And then your pre-delay delays the signal before it's processed. So your lower settings are more natural sounding, and the higher settings give it a more unnatural effect. So it's more if you're wanting to use it as an actual effect that's noticeable. So then you have your early reflections. Your early reflections are the beginning parts of your reverb. I'm going to turn off the diffusion so you can hear just the reflections. And I'm going to turn the dry wet all the way up so you hear just the effect. And then we're going to mix it in with. So you can hear how it's kind of just that first reverberation that you hear. Your spin controls the modulation of the sound. It adds a little bit of variety to it. And then your shape controls how much of the reflections there are before you go into your diffusion network. So the higher the setting, the faster it goes into diffusion, and the lower, actually it's the other way around. The lower setting puts it into the diffusion faster. It mixes it in faster, and then the higher setting reflects longer. And then you have your global section, which has your quality. Usually you want to turn your quality all the way up to high, so that mainly when you have it on high, you're going to get a much more of the high end or the higher frequency sounds are going to be much crisper. And then your size controls the size of the room. The lower the size, the smaller the room sounds, the faster the reverb slaps back. And the larger the size, the more gentle the reverb sounds. And then stereo controls the stereo width of the effect. When you have it at 0, it's going to be in mono. If you have it up to 120, you've got the effects spread out to both speakers separately. Then you have your diffusion network. Your diffusion network also has a filter. It works a little differently than the input filter in that you have separate frequency settings for your high and lows. And your width settings are also separated, so you can tweak it exactly how you want it to sound. So I'm going to play it, and you can hear how it sounds when we change those settings. And then you have your decay time. Your decay time controls the tail of the diffusion. The higher the decay time, the longer the decay. Then you could actually freeze the effect Now you can hear with that it doesn't add anything to the sound anymore when you freeze it. You can actually turn that off by turning off the cut. Okay, so the cut, what that does is it tells the signal, or it tells the reverb to not take in any more input signal when it's frozen. So when you hit engage freeze, it's going to cut anything from coming in, and you're going to just have that moment reverberated through the diffusion network. And then flat actually turns off the filter. So if you have this off, your diffusion is going to be filtered. If you have it turned on, diffusion is no longer filtered. So when it's frozen, you're just getting that signal. It really depends on what you're trying to do, what kind of sound you're trying to get. Usually flat turned on is going to give you a more controllable effect with the freeze. Then you have your chorus, which adds a little bit of a chorus effect to the reverberated sound. And density and scale controls the size of the diffusion. And then on your output section, you can control how much of the reflections you want coming in, how much you just want diffusion, and then dry wet controls how much of the original signal you hear and how much of the affected signal you hear. So I'm going to tweak the density and scale, and you can hear how those change the sound. I'm going to turn off the reflections so you can just hear the diffusion. Now we'll bring the reflections back in. And then we'll bring in the rest of the track so we can hear how it fits in the mix. And that's Reverb. So like I said, we could use this on pretty much any type of sound. Usually you want to add a little bit of reverb to some of your drum sounds so that they fit better in the mix. They don't sound so dry and just pulled out of a sample pack. You can use them on your pads and things like that to give them more motion, and again also make it sound like they're playing from a room rather than just coming out of a computer. So the reverb is a very versatile effect. Pretty much everybody uses it on every type of track you can think of. If you have any tips, I definitely would like to see them in the comments, so definitely post them in the comments, and make sure you subscribe, and thank you for checking out this video.